should all be working. I'm carefully paying attention to the video preview for Twitch dashboard because apparently something with it was changed over the last few days, and last week or so it's been focusing pretty heavily on the video preview not not starting up without audio. Oh, and I'm dumb. I meant to reset that so that you could get the lovely intro. I actually have the audio a little bit low for me. So looking at the graph, I might actually need to bump it up a little bit anyway. Doesn't really matter which class we do for 90% of the game. Basically it comes down to there are Street Samurai, which they start with a melee cyberware. Just the basic version. There are Deckers who start with a data jack. One of the potential issues with Deckers is if you are getting fully cybered out, that is karma that you can't otherwise use, but the main item that you would use that for is spurs or something of the sort, something that the samurai starts with. The third option, and actually the strongest option for doing everything if you're willing to put in the time, is Gator Shaman. And the reason for that, very simply, is Gator Shamans can get access to foci. And they can also have cyberware, and having the cyberware does not influence the impact of their foci, it just influences how effective their spells are. So for that reason, if you don't want to spend a lot of time in the game, Samurai is the best choice. You will need Deckers eventually, regardless of which class you pick, but Samurai is probably the best class for most people. I'm doing Gator Shaman basically because otherwise, odds are good I'm not going to show anything off as far as magic. Magic's just not all that effective. Basically, the big positive of magic is that it's not using ammunition. But there are quite a few negatives. It can drain your own will. There's two health bars. There's I think it's physical health and mental health. And using especially powerful spells can drain your mental health. And I might actually have that backwards. And of course, we don't actually start with 250 new yen. New yen being the money of choice in basically every Shadowrun system. And this page would just be blank if we did not have access to magic. It might actually not let us into it. Yeah, we can't actually get this spell up to the point where it would cause us drain. But we can see that Rock Skin can cause drain, and the Heal Wound spell can cause drain. We do have a fetish that is used up. One use each time something would be causing drain. And we have a stim patch and a trauma patch, and I don't remember which exactly those heal. I have a basic enough memory of the cities here. So we're going back to that motel, and we need to take it to the Hollywood Correctional Facilities. One of the nice parts about all of the various runs is all of them give you karma. That won't really come into play for a bit because we're not going to have the karma to do anything. I think this side is the correct one, right here. Oh no. It's either to the left or right here. Judging from the fact that the rest here is nuclear, it might be this building off to the left here. And this is one of the downsides of going alone. Now he was using just regular physical attacks. Your own physical attacks, if you don't have spurs, just cause mental damage. One of the neat things with Shadowrun, generally speaking, is that mental damage in the amounts that you are normally going to see it can't usually kill you. Wait, where was... Oh. I got it incorrect because I'm an idiot. Boris's greenhouse is in the top right. This thing. It's, I believe it's got weapons and a few other things. It's not really important, especially because there's Harry's world right there. But the being unable to die from it is relevant to your interests here, because we don't have a dock wagon contract, anything of the sort. Jump house. I am actually not recalling where the... Oh wait, we're in the jump house, aren't we? And yeah, this is how the early game tends to go. It's specifically made to be kind of a tutorial, but it's mostly tedious, busy work. Which, I mean, that it does kind of set you up for how a lot of the game goes. Rat's Nest. I'm hoping Rat's Nest is that building I walked into before, but I'm not really that certain. Because it might also be the name of, I think there's another building right attached to the jump house. I'm not sure what that is. basically just, okay, how are we doing money-wise? Not quite. We're just doing this until we get the 250 new yen, then we can turn it in. That will also, I believe, provide a small amount of karma, which we can see that we've been getting karma this entire time by going to attributes. And for everything, all the attributes, it's 2 to 1, or it might be 1 to 1. You know something? I'm not gonna really bother with that until I, well, this is one of the things you do have to contend with. And unfortunately, this style of running away and then attacking is going to be a mainstay. He dropped a first aid pack. Interesting thing with first aid packs is that or first aid kits, is that the selling price for them is not impacted by how many uses they have left. And one of the very nice things is that all of the various hotels in the game are reasonably affordable, which is nice because that's the only way to heal. And I am probably going to skip reading about half of this stuff. I am trying to make it so it is on screen long enough that it can be read. But, oh yeah, I do actually want to take notes on a few of these things. Just because otherwise I'm going to forget about them. And Caleb Brightmore is a Mr. Johnson. This is not revealed to us for a while. Normally we would need to get our reputation up a fair amount, or I think it's have an elf with us to get into the building where he is. And since we are now allowed to die, the game decides to be a jerk. Yeah, so that took 50 of our money. I think it drops us right outside, yeah. So we can go in and see Dr. Haversheen. And a lot of the game is kind of pushing you towards this realization that not just your brother, but also Stark is dead. This is incorrect. Stark is very much alive still. And oh yeah, there is not actually an in-game map, which is something that frequently annoys me. And we're not going to be getting into any fights. We're going to try to avoid fights as much as possible right now. Because until we spend that karma, we are well, actually, even after we spend the karma, we're still going to be pretty weak. More than I wanted to pay, but it is what it is. Yeah, the attributes all cost what you're upgrading the stat to in karma. Almost everything down here in skills costs double that, with the exception of the weapons. But due to a glitch with, I think it's a glitch, certainly an error, due to an error with the way that it's done, it is intentionally set up so that, you can see that upgrade to 3. I believe it's 1.5 for the weapons instead of double like it is with firearms. But everything down here has a max of 12 unless you upgrade firearms to 12 first, in which case this will still get that +1. But it's only on the first time. It's only if it's raising from 0. So, while we are not going to be doing that because we're not using those attributes, we do want to raise some of our other stuff, possibly. Or we might just want to hold off and raise sorcery, which I think is what we are going to do. I was thinking we had enough for some reason. You also occasionally get... Huh. Okay, so that's where we are. You occasionally get karma from killing people, but it's not very frequent. I don't think we can even get in here. Somewhere around here is a Decker, which I want to grab for 2 reasons. We don't actually have enough to hire him for a long-term contract, but we do have enough to... this is the one that we either need more reputation or we need no. The big reason we're looking for a Decker is almost entirely due to the fact that decking is where the easy money for this game comes from. Yeah. Here is our first, not necessarily the first, but our oh, we don't have the money for it. So that didn't matter anyway. Oh, actually, we could get the money for it. Probably. Just not here. We need to go to a weapons store. It might be this. Nope, this is magic store, but it works. Also, I believe there is occasionally a bug related to the way armor works. So you might occasionally be seeing me unequip and re-equip gear to get things to work properly. Now, one of the nice things is that, generally speaking, almost everything is set up so that the runners are sticking around for a run. Now that sounds bad, but it's honestly it's set up in such a way that it is a lot of time worth it to do the bring them along for a run if you have a whole bunch of things that you need to do, none of which are actually associated with a run. That's actually not what I wanted, because I want to check and make sure that this is the correct building. This is Roscoe. This is one of the most important buildings in the game. And now we have taken control of the elf, who I don't recall the name of. And I clicked on the wrong button.
Accepted.
Now there are a few programs here. The attack is obvious. Deception is, generally speaking, what you want to try to do. Analyze, generally speaking, is useless. It can be useful to know what ice you're going up against, but 90% of the time, you're gonna just be using deception first, and when that fails, you'll want to start attacking. And I'm not even bringing the recovery one because it's liable to fail now, right now. Due to a combination of two things. Our Decker's relatively low stats, and our Cyber Deck's low stats. Because we have just a junky, basic, Crash 80 equivalent Cyber Deck. Also, it's looking like I probably want to reduce some of the compression on the game's audio, since it is somewhat quiet. If I can click on the right item, I will do that real quick. If I can figure out how to get out. Okay, so the way that decking works in this game is you go around.
Password rejected. Password rejected.
And we're trying to get into the various ices. Looks actually a little bit high. And what we are interested in is the DSs, the data storage. Because what we want to do is we want to steal that data, steal all that delicious data. As much of it as we can, anyway. This is Dead Projects. The names... Oh yeah, we only have 50 to start, I think is what it is. We have 100, but I don't know how much of that is actually viable. Okay, so that's including space used by our various programs. So we have completely filled our available space. So now we can come over and sell stuff. Now the first one was worthless. but the second one is 600 new yen, which is more than we paid as a fee for Phantom. So he has just paid for himself. He is a pretty decent runner, all things told. One of the major advantages he has is he is an elf. His cyberware is not set up ideally for
Passcode.
doing stuff in cyberspace, but we actually can't hit an elf that is set up ideally for cyberspace. So ultimately, in spite of the statistical differences, there isn't a huge difference between an optimally set up elf that you can get, the two that you can get in this game, and an optimally set up Joshua.
Passcode rejected.
Now, it actually
Alert.
it does matter what button we hit. I'm hitting A, but there's also B and C. Now, generally speaking, the reason you almost never want to use B or C is it determines what posture you're using. And posture, more offensive postures tend to have more efficient hit rates than the less offensive postures. So A is full offense, B is neutral, and C is defensive. But yeah, we're not hitting this. It's not that big a deal since we're not getting hit back. But yeah, since we can't seem to actually hit the thing, it's gonna be more worth our time to just leave. And that's how it goes sometimes with low level decking. It's also one of the issues of
Passcode rejected.
a lot of times you're just going to
Passcode accepted.
use the money that you gain doing this on your decks or on your various things to become better at decking.
Passcode rejected.
So it takes a while for it to help out outside of getting more money slightly more efficiently. And those balls leaving the screen, and they wouldn't be leaving the screen if I could actually hit the enemy. They are what caused the alerts, because they're supposed to sort of represent packets going out. Wow, we hit 2 in a row to start, not a 1 cent. I'm expecting a yellow alert anytime now. Oh, come on. Yeah, sometimes, even if you hit it right when the packet's going out, you don't get favorable treatment. And the bad part here is this is the quicker way, I guess I should say, to make money. Not necessarily the most interesting. But this is
Rejected.
mostly set up
Passcode accepted.
more similar to the way some some Shadowrun campaigns I've played are set up.
Password alert.
That is black tar. That just ate our due to the fact that, oh, okay. It was just doing very small amounts of damage. Okay, that's not gonna work. Gonna try jacking out, see if that helps as far as not permanently, well, not permanently. Nothing as far as damaging the, oh, we don't have data. Do want to go get another copy of that program. Using black tar can potentially be, no, it's the one further on. It can potentially be advantageous to use black tar because there's no way to delete programs otherwise. But you can't get it to delete the medical program, and I'm not sure that it'll ever delete the analyze program. And unfortunately, there's just not a lot of reason to ever get 90% of these programs. Because they'll just... Oh, that's not available here. Excellent. Okay, so we are actually at a worse spot than before. This is why, generally speaking, you would want to save in between doing the runs so that even if you run into black ice, you're not adversely affected. It's also because I believe it needs to be an offensive program of some type, like slow. It's one of the reasons why that's not where I wanted to look. For a lot of the things, some people recommend having slow as well as your mask program loaded. And basically, if you're, maybe analyze as well, see. Though that might also be able to be eaten by a black ice, black tar. Tar pit? I don't fully remember a lot of the Shadowrun jargon. I'm also kind of at a loss for what to do right now because
Rejected.
oh, yeah.
Passcode.
The having to go all out offensive
Accepted.
makes a lot of this stuff a lot more difficult.
Active alert.
And not just because there's tar paper in a lot of spots. Okay. Unfortunately, this is just kind of the way the early game goes if you're trying to make your money via
Passcode.
decking. It's
Accepted.
time consuming, but it's still more consistent than trying to go out on runs just because you can't afford a good runner to come with you. And additional runners take money.
Passive alert.
This is much more, this one's paying attention to its alerts much more, or its packets much more. But we may not get to a, data storage before we are at an active alert and
Active alert.
yeah. Even if we got to the data storage, there's no guarantee that we would get anything out of it because it does activate, or it does send the pings up. And we're not having any luck getting this in. Yeah, this is one of the big issues with low karma doing anything in cyber. So I think we will head back to well, I know there. Head over to the number. I know somewhere on this chain of 3 is a club we can get into for free. Might have been this. Oh no, this is a corporate building. Yeah, unfortunately the buildings are not the easiest to tell what anything is. That's Lone Star. We don't have any business there for the immediate time. I believe that's a ghoul-infested building. That's our hotel for here. Somewhere around here is a club. I assume. I may be incorrect. Based off the fancy stuff around. Yeah. So, we need to either get our... Oh, actually we have an elf with us. We might be able to get into the one where the guy complained about us being a breeder. This one? No. Must have been this one. And I believe... Yeah, this is where Caleb Brightmore is. Now, because we did not get in on our own, there's actually nothing we can do there. So, really, we need to head back to whatever city it was we were originally in, Redden Barrens. Transportation is fortunately very inexpensive in this game. And I think the best option would be to continue doing just basic missions. Jackal's Land. I'm not 100% certain on which building that is. Because it's not the rat's nest. Okay, it might be one of the ones over here on the further on the right. I don't know what the name of this is. Okay, so it's a chop shop. It's the cyberware here. That is a ghoul-infested building. And as we can see, Phantom is better at taking a hit than us. Although part of that is he has better armor than us. We have the crappiest armor possible. We do want to upgrade to that armor jacket, but outside of selling Phantom stuff, which we don't really want to do, we don't have access to the money for that. This is the nuke plant. Yeah, okay. So everything is... Wait, is Jackal's Lantern the name of the dang... No, that's the Coffin Motel. Is there something further to the left that I'm just not remembering? No. Is it this other building right here? I mean, I've said a handful of times I am an idiot. So, basically, like I said before, we are just trying to get, while that is a good price for ghouls, I don't think we really have the stuff to be taking on ghouls, and there's always the possibility of gargoyles and various other, incredibly annoying enemies. Incredibly dangerous enemies. I wasn't really paying that much attention. I think this is the point. Okay, thankfully. Oh, the correctional facility. Still guards, different actual location. Also, I'm an idiot for a different reason. I could have sold the armor clothes to purchase the armor jacket. And I am surprised that Phantom has stuck around as long as he has. That's not where we wanted to go. The single run hiring is always kind of weird because sometimes they actually do take it to mean a single run, and sometimes they stick around for what seems like the amount of time that it would be if they were, hired on permanently.
Schattenlauf. Schattenlauf.
Also, one of the things that I do like is that it does show you that, both when your negotiation skill works and when it doesn't, which, with our relatively low negotiation skill, is going to be most of the time. But it is good for a handful of new yen on these early missions, majority of the early missions anyway. I prefer to do my low-level money grinding and karma grinding here, basically just because it's a lot quicker. With almost any other Johnson, these type of crappy little delivery escort missions tend to have a lot more walking. Okay, so little Chiba is far right, and then we have to go center bottom. I suppose that's probably more like bottom left, because it's west of the nuke plant wall. And I believe we are getting to the point we're going to have double digit karma. Yeah, we actually already have it. There are built-in debug codes in this game. They are accessed by hitting ABBA CAB on the title screen before the text scrolls across. I don't intend to use those this time around. I seem to recall there being an issue that occasionally popped up with using them, so I try not to. Generally speaking, bumping up your attributes, your relevant attributes, is going to be among the more effective things you can do for Phantom, because really all that we are going to hire him for late game would be to be a better hacker, just computer and quickness, possibly body, but that's not as likely to come into play. But he's not even the best decker to start. We just don't have access to her. There are worse deckers available. There is a dwarf decker. I don't remember if dwarf is one of the races that has a negative max dex, max quickness. But regardless, due to the racial limitations, he is not going to be as good as the elf would be. But on the other hand, I think he can actually do... Well, actually, all of them, I believe, can do... Okay, so nuke plant to Coffin Motel. All of them can do 2 or 3, or no, just 2 levels of the plus stats. That would be a good deal if you could be certain that they were not a cop. but in my experience, 99% of the time, that is a cop. So, we got a little bit of money out of that. And it's like once every 20 enemies or so, 16 to 20 enemies, you get karma, point of karma. So the runs are where 90% of your karma are coming from anyway. Some especially long corporate runs may have additional, may have enough enemies that you're getting karma from that, but those are going to be runs that went wrong rather than runs that went right. Generally speaking, corporate runs are not the best idea. I mean, you don't have to deal with, potential retaliation the way you would in a actual campaign, but they are just incredibly tedious, and there's a lot of luck involved, even if you have essentially maxed out charisma, negotiation, all those relevant skills. Sometimes you'll just get screwed over. I believe actually the Dwarf Decker, thinking about it, is in the Jackal's Lantern right here. Yeah. Oh no, I was incorrect. This is the Dwarf Shaman. He is not awful, but there is, regardless of what you intend to do, a distinctly better shaman. Walking Bear. She is a orc shaman. Orc being one of the races that has enhanced physical capabilities. She is, for various reasons, the most effective physical attacker in the game. Most dangerous one. The major reason there being that the charms or foci that I mentioned before are pretty devastating in their effectiveness when combined with high-level cyberware. The second best, just pure melee fighter, is Winston Mars. He is a troll street samurai. And most of his effectiveness just comes down to the fact that when you hire him to start the game, he is completely free of cyberware, so you can customize him however you want. And I already forgot if this is Nuke Plant or Coffin Motel. Guess it was Nuke Plant. And Mars is very effective, but oh, okay, maybe it was the Hollywood Correctional Facility? Oh, it was the jump house. I don't know why I was thinking it was. Yeah. Oh, actually, we can go over and sell those for a fair amount of money. And med kits are fantastic once you get your biotech up, but until you get your biotech up, they're probably worse than the patches. The patches heal a very consistent 20%. The medkits, I believe you need, I think it's 3 biotech, so a 6 karma, before they start healing 20% of each.
Schattenlaub.
I'm not interested in ghoul runs. We just don't really have the stats for them. They are worth it if you can kill a whole bunch of ghouls easily. But you want better weapons than we're carrying to do that. If you're focusing on pistols, which is probably the way to go, you want, at the very least, you want everybody to be rocking Ares Predators. Just like in the tabletop game, because of the fact that there is no Super Warhawk, there is only the regular Warhawk. In terms of pistols, there is really no comparison to the Ares Predator. Although I believe Shadowrun 3 was the first one to really try to address that. Adding more pistols, adding more options that made the light pistols not seem so garbage. That one actually might have been worth it because it was 50 per. Red's Nest, Jackal's Lantern. And at 50 per, you really only need to go in and kill a couple ghouls for it to be worth it. Obviously, if you kill the 20, that's a fair amount of cash. But, Jackal's Lantern. And I believe this game is mostly accurate to tabletop Shadowrun of the time, which I believe would be first edition. 94 might have been second edition.
Schattenlaub.
As accurate as you can be with a system converted to be an ARPG. But I believe it does all of the success rolls and such with what essentially amounts to a D6 set of D6s, so it's more accurate than most conversions, but it's very opaque about it, which is strange. It hides all of the potential numbers, but it does do a lot of them, as I understand, especially for the cyber combat. And I don't know when Phantom is going to leave here. I don't know if the NPCs are just set up to not leave if you're only doing these low-level missions. If they're looking for something that is worth more money, or if there's very simply just a cap on the amount of money that they need to reach before they leave. Because I've been expecting Phantom to leave for the last half hour. Is that about how long I've been grinding these out? I mean, I think it was like 15 minutes ago was the last time we got into combat. So he's been walking around with a unloaded pistol. Well, that's unfortunate. Now, one of the neat things with this game is the fact that if we had medkits, there wouldn't really be any such thing as potentially losing anybody. Because you can always... Well... So much for that. Due to the way that one went, we are going to actually be recording. I was hoping for a group of, like 1 or 2. Not 4 and then 3 more and a trench-coated melee character once we were heading back. Okay, so it really does not want to let us get that essentially free money from doing ghouls. I would prefer to keep Phantom on as long as possible, just because it is going to doing these crappy runs with him is going to provide karma, which is useful if I don't want to hire the other decker. That's a door. Okay. So, I think we might have to go back to the Mr. Johnson to drop that one.
Schattenlaub. Schattenlaub.
But yeah, unfortunately, this is kind of what the early game for this represents, and really the majority of the game. There aren't that many huge paradigm shifts. I mean, once you get to the point where you can just sit there and hack back and forth is great, but that requires a fairly heavy stat investment. That requires,
Schattenlaub.
by association, a fair amount of playing time.
Schattenlaub.
And it doesn't ultimately make the game that much better. It just makes the game more enjoyable at what it's, already doing. If you're not enjoying the content here, you're not really going to enjoy the content later when it becomes, you and the enemy are both a lot stronger. Although in some cases it does get better, because if you were focusing on melee, you can control Walking Bear or Winston Mars while letting the AI control Joshua. That can be good, aside from the fact that I believe if Joshua is down, either mental or physical, at any point in time, when you transition, you get a dock wagon lift. Also, oddly, the bitrate section on the Twitch dashboard appears to be screwing up for me. So I don't know if we're still doing okay as far as the feed quality goes.
Schattenlaub. Schattenlaub.
Yeah, if you don't, because of the sensitivity of their boxes, and because everything's set up to be automatic once you run into things, if you don't touch anything for a second after leaving, it will occasionally register it as you wanting to talk to them again. And I already forgot Rat's Nest. But yeah, I think in general this game looked good. Generally speaking, I feel it's one of the better done soundtracks on the Genesis. Although putting this through my normal stuff has made me realize it is fairly quiet. I don't remember it seeming this quiet when I was going through it before. Now, based off the things that are actually killing us right now, and I think if we had an additional couple karma points, that would be going into quickness. We do want to check and see. Yeah, unfortunately, there aren't additional options yet for our spells. We need to actually go out and purchase them. And there isn't a magic store here. The nearest magic store was in Renraku. Which we can head over to once we finish this mission. A secondary advantage of the doing things here also, for some reason, as your wait, keep confusing the Hollywood Correctional Facility and Chihuahua plant. For some reason, having low mental health makes it so that it's more difficult to get your spells off. I'm gonna hit up the Coffin Motel before we head over. I don't think we have the karma to do anything that I want to do on either character. Oops. I was trying to figure out what it was trying to target when I changed characters there. Now, one of the nice things, if you're going to the 3 central locations, is it's, 20 instead of 40 that it is for the outside ones. Some of these are very, very effective. The problem with things like Mana Storm is it's doing potentially damage to your own people. But these are the 2 things that I mentioned before as being really strong. Even if you're not using cyberware on a shaman, you do eventually want to pick these up. They are universal. They make everything just a lot stronger. And I believe Merlin's lore has the strongest ones. I believe there is no rating 5 for these. And they're just kind of ridiculous. There's also spell foci, which are really good for if they have the specific spell you want. I believe they just essentially make it as if you have several levels higher of that spell. In this case, we're going to pick up Mana Blast, because I seem to recall that is the upgrade, damage upgrade. Yeah. We are going medium offensive posture. It doesn't make any effective difference on our defense because we don't have any defensive stats. But it does make a difference to the rank. I believe we can further reduce that by increasing our body, but I'm not 100% certain. I don't remember everything with the magic system. But unfortunately, it's still not enough to one-shot people. I believe that's because of the significantly smaller number of successes. Basically, it's getting fewer dice. So it may not be better right now. Yeah, it looks like, after a little bit of testing, it's not better right now. It is what it is. But yeah, this is probably going to be the only time I show this game off. I do personally enjoy it. I just don't think it's a very good stream game, even, you know, when compared to the fact that I'm mostly just doing RPGs. This is repetitive across the board without major changes. And so I just don't think it works. I would like to thank you for watching. I will be back on Friday with I don't know. Something. Probably one of like Earthbound or something. Something that will definitely be enjoyable. And probably stream a lot better than Shadowrun.